Hello, everybody. Let's begin the post-lunch session, Agile Network India March event, day 2. So now we will be starting the session from Chennai chapter. Topic is NeuroScience Approach to Agile Coach by Mohammed Javed. Before we start the session, let me thanks founding sponsor Innovation Roots. Innovation Roots is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for the content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more details, I request you to visit www.innovationroots.com. Do's and don'ts. Request you to join 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers or headphones for the better sound quality. Keep your microphones muted and video disabled as they may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via chat box. At the end of the session, facilitator or moderator will help you and read out the few questions to the speaker as per the time available. Please fill the feedback form after the event to let us know understand more about the event management and the other topics or themes what you would like to hear in future. We appreciate your cooperation. With this, I would like to invite Rohit, who is going to facilitate this particular from on behalf of Chennai chapter. Over to you, Rohit.
Thank you so much, Prashant. And greetings to everyone. And thanks for joining with us. Today, we have chosen a very inquisitive and research oriented topic as neuroscience. We know that neuroscience is a scientific study of the nervous systems and the brain. If we understand better why we think, feel, and behave in a certain way, it will be very easier for us to find more effective ways for how to change that or make it work to our advantage. So today we have with us Mr. Mohammed Javed, who is going to helps us to understand about neuroscience approach to agile coaching. Mr. Javed is a performance-driven, highly experienced agile coach with the ability to demonstrate servant leadership and enable teams to deliver quality software with high business value. He has around 23 years of overall IT experience, inclusive of 8 years of experience as agile coach. He has extensive experience in coaching and forming cross-functional self-organized agile teams. Also, he has experience in leading agile transformation, DevOps transformation, extreme programming, engineering practices, scaling agile with SAFe. He has worked with Fortune 500 organizations across the USA, Netherlands, and United Kingdom. Also, he is renowned speaker in agile conferences, really very well versed and dynamic profile. I would like to invite and welcome Mr. Muhammad. Looking forward for insightful session. Platform is yours.
Thanks, Rohit. Thanks a lot for that. Welcome all and a very good afternoon. Rohit, I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's get started. I hope my screen is also visible now.
Yeah.
All right. So as Rohit said, the topic is about how we apply neuroscience approach to agile coaching. Um, we will cover about what is agile coaching. We'll cover about the amygdala and amygdala hijack. We'll touch upon on the various cognitive distortions that we'll have, and how to handle the deceptive brain messages. And we'll also touch upon how the agile principles can be related with neuroscience. All right. So I think yeah, I briefly touched upon on what we have to do to see that the agile transformations go better. Like 84%, we hear that we have to still get better on the agile ways of doing the things, right? So it's more for us to see that there are more human interactions involved in that, and we have to understand the humans more better so that the agile transformations um, get better in the implementation, get more into the success state, right? And then we also touched upon that psychological safety was also listed by Google as one of the topmost things to get the teams better and to move them towards high performing teams. And psychological safety also involves is human interactions there. right? So and then we started correlating that to neuroscience. So it was like for us to understand better what we have to do, we have to first understand the why the teams think, feel, or behave in a certain way, so that we can then go and see what we have to do, how can we change the teams in the way that they think, feel, or behave, right? But the first thing is about understanding why they do that, right? And that's where the neuroscience comes in, which is about the scientific study of the nervous system and the brain. And at our knowledge work, we use the brain most of the time for doing the rational part of the thinking and then working. And that's where it brings important that we understand our team more in the neuroscience perspective and understand why they react, behave in a certain way, and then see how can we get better in the ways of working, and then we can get the people to apply a more rational part into the work that they do. So while we understand the neuroscience, it's better for us to understand the three types of brains that we have. The reptilian brain, which is the lowermost part, it's more about acting and getting the things done without any thinking or without any emotions, right? For example, the breathing that we do, the digestion that happens within our body. So these kind of things happens by the brain stem, by the reptilian brain, which happens unconsciously without we getting involved in that, right? The other thing is the limbic brain, which is more from the emotional aspects, which is also there with the animals, because animals also at times show the emotions. So it's just acting based on the emotion. That's what is the mammalian or the limbic brain. All right, so let me keep a track if the connection again goes down, but yeah, extremely sorry for that. Okay, so quickly moving forward, we were looking at the anatomy of brain. The signal which we see, anything that we see, we first get a signal to the thalamus. From the thalamus, the signal goes to the amygdala, which lies in the limbic region, and there is a signal which also goes to neocortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, um, the neocortex part, right? Now if we directly act from the limbic region, right, we just saw that okay, limbic region is way which is more of the emotional aspects comes in. So if we act from the limbic part of the brain where we have the amygdala, then it's like we just act from our emotions. Okay, but if we can little bit control the emotions, then the signal also goes to neocortex. That's where the rational part of the brain is, right? That's where we'll apply lot of um, um, lot of parameters and then take a calculated decision of what to do, right? And finally from the neocortex, the signal again comes back to the limbic part of the region, that is the region number 2 that we see here. And the final decision anyway happens through emotions, but avoiding it happening to emotions directly and allowing it to go to neocortex is what will make us to apply the rational part into the thinking, right? For example, let's take an example. For example, I have approached my manager and asked for some help, and he said that no, it is something that I should scale up and do myself, right? Now next time if I want to again go and ask for help or something else, um, I will the first whatever I think, the I'll first get a signal which will go to the limbic region, the emotional part. And the previous emotion which I had was last time when I approached, I did not get a positive response. So let me not approach now, right? So that's directly acting from the emotion. Okay, my emotion last time was not good. My experience last time was not good. Okay, so I don't want to approach again because I want to avoid that experience, avoid to face that experience again, right? So whatever emotional things or whatever experiences we have from our childhood, they are all stored in a memory in our brain which is called as hippocampus. Okay, so whenever a similar situation happens, when we first get the signal to the limbic part, the emotional part of the brain, where the amygdala is there, and if our hippocampus where the previous history is stored says that okay, something is not, previous experience was not good, so don't go forward with that, the emotion was not good, we are not having a good emotion with that previously, then we will just ignore it and avoid that thing, right? So which means I will not go to my manager and ask for help because my previous experience was not good. I may not go to the product owner and ask for the explanation of the story if the previously when I approached the product owner did not respond me positively. Or if I approach my team member, but the team member has not given me relevant support, I may want to avoid going asking him support again, because my previous experience was not good. My emotional things which are stored in the hippocampus, that tells us that okay, don't go, because it will give you bad emotion, it will not give you good emotions, right? So we as human beings always want to have reward and avoid threat, right? So while we want to have reward, it could be anything, like not having a bad experience also is a reward, right? So if my team member is not supportive, but if I approach, he may still say that no, I'm busy, I could not do. So that feeling may not be good for me, so better I don't approach him, right? So the previous things which are stored in our hippocampus may come up in a way, and those emotions that amygdala may make us feel not to approach for that. That's what we may also call as amygdala hijack. We just listen to our amygdala, listen to our previous emotions, and act based on that, right? Well, the signal also goes to the neocortex, and that is our thinking brain. So if we can avoid this amygdala reaction from that part, right? So if we can for some time think that okay, last time the reaction was not good, but let me again approach in a different way. Maybe I have not put the facts right last time, that's why it has not gone good, right? So let me put the facts better this time and see how it goes, right? So that is more logical thinking that happens from the neocortex. And then if the neocortex, from the neocortex, if we take a decision that okay, let me approach with the right set of questions now. Okay, so again, it may come back to the limbic part, and finally we take a action based of the limbic region. But this time the neocortex has controlled that, right? It has told us, it has made us realize that let us approach in a different way, and we have trained ourselves to do that, right? It's not that we are directly acting from the emotional part, right? So if we directly act from the emotional part, I think that's where the amygdala hijack will come, and that's where the lot of logical thinking may be missed out, right? And I think we just covered about the amygdala hijack, right? So this was covered by Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, right? So while IQ is definitely required to do the work, but understanding the people emotionally and understand why they behave in a certain way or act in a certain way also does matter. And for us to control our emotions is also an important aspect to that. So one of the ways for us to avoid that amygdala hijack is like okay, if something happens like that, it's better that for some few seconds we just do some relaxing exercise or something like that, so that we don't allow directly acting based on the um, emotional aspect of that, right? But give it, send a signal, allow the signal to go to the neocortex, think little bit logically, and then act on that, so that we do the right decision and act in the right way, right? So in our body we also have the various chemicals which also influence the way that we do act, right? For example, um, if we have some physical pain in our body, somewhere we get hurt or something, the endorphins gets produced by our body to reduce that physical pain. When you do some exercise, I hope you people might have heard that when you do exercise, it makes us feel little bodily, it may stimulate our body and also make us little happy. So that's about the serotonin which gets generated during that time, right? The other two important chemicals are the dopamine and oxytocin, right? So the dopamine is more about when we get some reward or when you do some kindness. For example, I give a charity to someone, I am showing an act of kindness, right? So I get dopamine created in me, and the person to whom I give charity also gets dopamine created in him. Um, if we as a team together, if we are for example achieving the sprint goal, right? So the entire team gets the dopamine. It's a feeling of reward. Okay, we have achieved what we have, right? So any feeling of reward or the feeling of kindness is what is the dopamine chemical that gets created in our body. The oxytocin is more about the relationship that we have, the trust that we have, the empathy that we show to the people, right? So it creates more oxytocin between us and the others. Like for example, the mother and newborn baby, they have a lot of oxytocin, and that's what the makes a newborn baby feel more comfortable when it is in the hands of the mother. And so that's about this oxytocin chemical, right? So it's about getting this so when while we know that okay, we should have a trust, we should have empathy and good relationships, relating that to that, okay, why that actually helps is because of this chemical called oxytocin, right? So that will also help us that to know scientifically that okay, what is that that makes it really important, right? And also the dopamine, which reward, right? So we as human beings always we want to have reward and reduce the threat part. So that's why we say that yeah, the sprint goal has to be something achievable, right? Our target should be should have some realistic targets, right? It's not that too short but not too long targets also, right? Not too difficult targets also, something that positively checks our capabilities, our knowledge, but at the same time a realistic one that we can achieve, right? So and we also say about having achieving things in chunks, in milestones, right? So all these things is because once you achieve a milestone, you get a dopamine created, right? You get that feeling that okay, I want to achieve more milestones, right? We want more of that reward, right? So that's the chemicals that we get into our body. um, I'm sure that all of us might have also had a view of this. It's like we as human beings have thoughts and we have the beliefs with us, right? So the beliefs that we have, the thoughts that we have, may create emotions in us as human beings, right? And the emotions that we have may make us behave in a particular way, right? For example, if my belief is that I have to help others, right? Then when I help others, I get a happy emotion, right? I feel happy in helping others because that is my belief is to help others, and when I help, I get that happiness emotion, right? And when I get that happiness emotion, I want to I do various other ways in which I can help others. So, and that brings a lot of behaviors in me, which will be like the characteristics of me helping others, right? So while I help others, that reinforces my emotion of being happy by helping others, and that reinforces the thought that the belief that I have to help others, right? So the belief and the thoughts that we have will have an impact to the emotions, which will result us in the way that we behave. The way that we behave will again reinforce our emotions, which in turn will reinforce in our thoughts, right? So while we want to change some of the emotional the way that our team behaves, while you want to understand that why they behave in a particular way, it's good, it's important that we get into what are the belief system they have, what are the emotions they are going through. Are they into the amygdala hijack, or are they thinking from the rational part of the brain and then taking the actions? Are the behaviors are based from that rational part? Of course the emotions will definitely come in the behaviors, but we have to go to the rational part, think it, and then allow the emotions to um, um, positively impact our behaviors, right? For example, if I have to buy a car, right? I may directly based on emotion, I can think that okay, for me Nano is the car that I want, for example, right? Or Maruti so and so brand is the car that I want, right? So because I am emotionally attached to that, because my friend also has that, I have no second thought, I am emotionally attached to this particular car, so I'll go to this car only. I'm directly acting based on the emotion. The other way for me is also to think little rationally from the neocortex part of the brain, and also see that okay, while uh, hope you're able to hear me, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, Javed.
Am
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, while I am while I have some desire to buy a particular type of car, but at the same time, if I also allow my rational part of the brain to help in figuring it out of various facts, comparing some other brands, and then logically see that whatever my emotional feelings are coming, is that the right thing, should I go with that only, right? Or I may emotionally get attached to something else after knowing some facts, and some things around that, right? So so finally the action is based on the emotion, but not immediately on the emotion, but after we allow the rational part of the brain also to think, apply the facts, and then apply the emotions, which may bring us the right behaviors into us. So, if we are the rational part of the brain that we talked about, the neocortex that we talked about, right? So, if we are if we allow to think from that, sometimes what will also happen is our the rational part of the brain may also give us some distortions. Like for example, it may show something that we are rationally thinking something to be right, but that is actually not right. Okay, so that is what we called as cognitive distortions. For example, I may feel that okay, um, for me to say that okay, I don't have time to work on this extra story, will help me to avoid that work. Right, so while I may say that yes, sorry, I'm working on some other story, and that is taking most of my time, so I cannot pick the other story, right? So the rational brain may make us feel that that is the right thing because you're occupied, so better say that you cannot take additional story in the sprint because this is what you can do, right? While it could be a cognitive distortion also in the way that maybe we are good to complete this story, right? So maybe we can always little bit more logically think and say that okay, this story can be completed in 2 days of time, and I have 3 more days left out in the sprint, which means I can pick the other story also, right? So having some logical thinking and then avoiding the distortions, right? There could be a lot of distortions that will come in our way, which will make us feel that it is right to that we can go and approach the thing in a particular way, but actually it could be a distortion that is making us feel that something is right, but while actually that is not right, right? So maybe
Javed, we are losing you.
since as human beings we want to get reward and avoid threats, so story, I'm not putting myself, I'm not stretching myself, I'm not putting more work to myself. So it may take that also as a kind of a reward, right? That you're not putting more extra work kind of thing, right? um, but actually that's not the actual reward actually, right? So avoiding those kind of thinkings is what is avoiding a cognitive distortions, right? At work we may see a lot of different kinds of cognitive distortions that we may be going through, right? For example, if we give feedback to our team members and say that okay, what they have done good and what they can improve on, maybe what they have improved on, if that is making them think more like okay, so my manager has asked me to improve on something, so that means I'm not doing good here, right? But the manager has given both the feedback. He has said that what's happening good, and at the same time what can be done better, right? So now if we just stick to what has not done better, if we just stick to that and leave the other things, right, then it's like we are just taking the negative part of that, and maybe the brain is making us feel that okay, this statement was made, um, so next time, I mean, and make us feel unhappy for that, right? So but actually it may be it may just be a distortion that we are into, right? The other example could be like directly jumping to conclusions, right? Before the meeting happens itself, if we say that okay, this meeting will not go successfully, right? So we are already making a conclusion, we are already jumping to some understanding that something will not happen, right? So that's also a kind of a distortion. um, it could also be that we take sometimes some things little personally, like for example, like we go for some outing, and if someone doesn't talk to us, we feel that okay, maybe I'm feeling isolated because people are not talking to me, right? We take things little personally, and we feel that okay, maybe this team doesn't think see that I'm part of that team kind of thing, right? Or it could be like blaming. Most of the time we feel that okay, something has not happened because something else has not worked out, right? We could not do this because some dependencies were not resolved on time, right? So it's about blaming something on else, whereas the actual fact could be that something that may would have been in our control to take an act and resolve at that time, right? So to avoid the cognitive distortions, it's about we getting more self-awareness, self-awareness of what we are actually what kind of feelings we get into, what kind of thoughts we have, what kind of emotions we have. uh, it's about more about the self awareness about us, and the entire team can also have awareness about each other. And it's also about a self management, right? So if I get some thoughts, if I get some cognitive distortions, how can I control those cognitive distortions? How can I manage that? How can I not act directly based on the limbic part of the brain, not directly act based on emotions, but also think from the logical rational part of the brain, and then take the decision, right? So it's more about bringing in the self awareness and self management into that. So there's one framework which helps us in handling the deceptive brain messages. So this is by Jeffrey, who has written the book "You're Not Your Brain." The brain may act in a particular way, but it's not that. It's not what we want. It's the brain is acting, so we have to control our brain, right? So it's about these four steps. For example, if I get a feeling that okay, my product owner is not giving the right clarity of the stories to me, right? For example, so I have to take lesser stories into the sprint because the clarity is not getting. Okay, now if I look at relabeling it, right? It's like okay, why am I not taking more stories into the work, right? So okay, there is some feeling that that the clarity is not there on the stories, right? So that is the feeling that I am having. So now what is the reframe that we have to do, right? So the reframe that we have to do is, it's not that I don't want to work, it's because the clarity is not there, that's why I'm not wanting to work. So what is the refocus we have to do here? We have to see how can we focus and get that clarity on that. And what is the revalue we have to do? We have to value that we get the clarity on the things beforehand, right? So instead of we complaining that okay, the clarity is not there, that's why I could not, so let me avoid the thing. It's more about understanding why we are acting in that particular way. Refocusing on what is the actual focus. Yes, as a team we have to pick up and do the stories, that is the focus for us. But how can we value about getting clarity, which means we have to ask the right questions to the product owner upfront. We have to discuss with them so that we get the right insights and so that we can get the things right. So it's about understanding our self awareness, self management, so that we can understand the problem and then refocus on how can we get better and revalue as a team, so that we can avoid these deceptive brain messages, right? So since we're running out of time, I thought I'll quickly touch on this one, right? How to understand the agile principles with neuroscience. While we say that okay, let's have motivated individuals is one of the principle, right? We say motivated individuals should be in the team. So the motivated individuals will, since they're motivated, they will have a lot of desire to avoid the kind of distortions that will come in their way, right? And they will take more decisions from the rational part of the brain. The working software, right? If we have the working software, it's like something that we are doing, so it gives us a feeling of reward. Uh, Changes, then it's like we get a clarity around that before we welcome. Then we go for welcoming changes. So since we are going with clarity and then welcoming changes, we'll reduce the stress part or the cortisol part of this. We say that business and developers have to work together. So that's what oxytocin gets created. A feeling of trust gets created when we are working together. Face-to-face conversations may help in reducing the stress and creating more trust and a kind of kindness. Early and frequent delivery is what we look forward to. That's again related to the reward dopamine. Sustaining pace is one of the agile principles that reduces cortisol, reduces the stress part. Technical excellence is one of the principle that will help the team to be appropriately challenged, so that they apply the rational part of the thinking brain and work. Simplicity again may reduce cortisol and avoid unnecessary stress. Self-organizing team, for that we should have oxytocin, dopamine, so that we have trust and empathy and all those things to reach to a self-organizing team. um, Value delivery is again related to dopamine, right? So this is a way that we can relate the neuroscience chemicals to the agile principles, right? So I think that brings us towards the conclusion of this talk, and subsequently based on the questions I'll explain more.
Yep. Thanks, Javid. Thanks for making us to correlate agile principles to neuroscience. And thanks for these 4R model which you represented to handle the deceptive brain messages and the ideas on how to overcome cognitive distortion. Thank you so much for that. I could see a couple of questions here. One question is from RC Goel, sir. He wants to know, like, may I say that empathetic way of leadership would help introducing a new way of working. You can have also look in chat box.
Empathetic. Yeah. So empathetic leadership will definitely be helping in the new ways of working, definitely. So the only thing is like, yeah, so we have to understand why someone behaves like that, right? And that's where the empathy comes, right? So if the team reacts in a particular way, why is it doing that, right? And maybe little bit looking at whether there are cognitive distortions which are coming in the ways, and that's making the team to react in that way. Or is the amygdala hijack happening in the team? Are they acting just based on the emotions because the earlier emotions for them were not that good? So those kind of insights will help to discuss with the team and to coach them, because what happened in the past may not happen again. But as human beings, we are always keep our previous memory, which always comes up in our subsequent actions, right? And as scrum masters and coaches, we can always see that whether there is some amygdala hijack that's happening in the team, whether there are some distortions which are happening in the team, right? Whether and if that is the case, we can always bring that up in the coaching. And showing empathy and empathizing is definitely a way forward for that.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that question that answer the questions. And also, addition to these, one more thing I could see here: proactive approach, both from leadership, including manager, would help in managing disconnect or discomfort in communication.
Yeah, proactive approach both from leadership, right? It would help in managing disconnect or discomfort in communications, of course. So that's proactive approach is definitely required, which means that see, for example, right, if we say that okay, my leadership is not um, good in my leadership is not good, for example, right? Now if some people team member says that, now there is two way to look at that, right? Is it amygdala hijack that is making us to say that okay, my leadership is not good because I did not had good emotions with my leadership before, hence I am labeling that my leadership is not good, right? Or it could be that okay, last time I approached my leadership for something, but I did not get proper response, so maybe my really rational part of the brain says that hey, don't take anything that the leadership gives to you. It's okay because you're always busy with the project work, so don't take additional work if the leadership comes for you for something else, right? Could be a cognitive distortion, right? So that handling deceptive brain messages, the model that we saw, right? So in that, if you use that model, the 4-step model, right, which talks about the relabel, reframe, refocus, and revalue, right? So if you relabel and see that what is the exact problem here, okay, am I just labeling that my leadership is not good because of one or two instances, right? What is the exact thing there, right? And then it's about refocus, right? So what should I do? Okay, am I doing what my leadership expects out of me, right? While I expect my leadership to be proactive, but am I also raising the right questions to them in the right forums and giving the right insights to them, right? So it's a two-way process, right? It's not, I mean, the idea here is there was also one good book written by John Miller. It is about question behind question, right? So it's about like we can always ask questions, this is not right, this is not going good, this is not like that. But the other question that we have to ask is what am I doing to get that in the right way, right? So that is a question behind question. And the moment that we start seeing what we can do, then we can start changing, because the actual change comes from within, right? We cannot change others, but we can change ourselves, for example, right? So if we start changing, then maybe the others will also have that, right? So that's one thought to that. But yes, of course, leadership being more proactive is definitely good to be there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Javid, once again. I hope this is a wonderful session, and we will love to hear more from your side. Might be you can come up with the second part too on the same topic once again, as it is very vast and research oriented. Yeah, thank you so much once again.